We would be nowhere without our title sponsor here at the 618 High School Huddle, and that is, of course, Chick-fil-A out of Fairview Heights. When you think of good food and high school sports, Chick-fil-A is the first thing to come to mind. Think about the O'Fallon Shootout, the Highland Shootout, the great Bevel East tournament that is held every year, and lots of great events. Go to a football game and see what you find there. You're going to find Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A in Fairview Heights, 6203 North Illinois Street, right there in the heart of Fairview Heights. Guess what? It's Sunday night. They're not open. They care about their family. And speaking of families, the first family of prep sports in this area, in my opinion, is the Holmes family. 3 Division I athletes coming out of that family. Pretty special deal. Dave's always been very generous with his time and everything at Chick-fil-A, and we really appreciate him being the title sponsor of the 618 High School Huddle. Proud sponsor since day one of the 618 High School Huddle, Mandy McGuire with Keller Williams Realty Group. The Mandy McGuire Group, nobody in the area does it better. If you're looking to sell a home, if you're looking to buy a home, Mandy has all the answers. She has the best professionals. Nobody's more engaged than she is throughout the entire process. One of our co-hosts, Scott, has personal experience with that. She sold his home in 24 hours. And that's the guarantee she'll give. All right, no, she won't do that. She can't sell a house in 24 hours, but she can come close. She's just almost that good. Mandy McGuire Realty, movewithmandy.com. Nobody in the area is better in the real estate game.
One-time world's heavyweight champion Danny Pounder's here. When the Pound Man puts his name on something, you know it's the very best. So anytime you see that 618 High School Huddle scroll across your marquee, just remember, you're listening to the #1 podcast in all the world.
Welcome to the 618 High School Huddle, hosted by Jim Thompson, Scott Warren, and AJ Thompson. And as you just heard, we are proud to announce that this is the #1 podcast in all the land.
No, it's not.
Shut up, man. It sounds better when I say it this way. The #1 podcast in all the land.
Nope, not even close.
Shut up, man. The #1 podcast is the 618 High School Huddle, and here we go.
Not even in the top 100,000.
Welcome to the latest edition of the 618 High School Huddle. We are, I would say, fresh off of our trip to Mater Dei. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's a fair statement.
Friday night, all I got to say is the rest of the area, you're on notice because you're not touching, in my opinion, it's very humble, the tailgate that we witnessed and were a part of Friday night.
It was pretty special.
I've shown the picture that you took. Scott took a picture, tweeted it out of. So it's senior night, and I've seen a lot of really cool senior night celebrations. Banners and things like that. Well, how about torso dummies? And if you don't know what a torso dummy is, it's just a half, right? With all the seniors' jerseys over shoulder pads, stacked on hay bales, where they had come on. And the moms with the song and the sharing of the apple pie,
the dads,
tasties. The dads going through a lot of iced tea. At least it looked like iced tea in various different bottles. It was an absolute blast. And it was funny, Colin, we set up there and we got there. Now, first of all, it's the first time we've experienced below 50 temperatures this year, and I'm thinking it was in the 20s.
It was brutal.
Felt brutal because we
Winds
haven't
blowing.
We haven't experienced that this year.
No, it was 90 last week.
And so we set the table up, this table, right outside of Scott's car. We actually turned it so that we could get as much wind block as possible.
Yeah.
And no sooner did we have the table set up and the computer on it, and here come the Napolvanis dad and the other last year. Oh, come on, Scott, you got to help me with the other kid.
I'm going to say Kessler, and that's not right.
No, Kessler's the guy right over there.
Yeah, no.
2 hours later.
Jasper, yeah. Sorry. So Corey Jasper was the gentleman's name. Just awesome people. And then while we're sitting there, people are coming up to us. We met Napo Vanis's aunt, who played soccer at McKendree, chewed some of the same ground that I chewed, although, she was probably a legit athlete. And it was great. We had a great time. So the rest of you, if you would like to reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, we'll tell you how Mater Dei does it. And if you can top that or even equal it up.
We're in.
It was crazy. The game itself, for 2.5 quarters was a hell of a ball game.
It was.
Granite did a really nice job on the Napo Vanis kid, and I was like, oh, shoot, here we are to see this kid play. He's been our player of the week. And, Mater Dei, they went to him the first 3 plays, and then they went to the big fullback, Foppy.
Had Napo as a wideout.
And they just didn't use him, and I'm like, oh, shoot, they're taking him out of the game. And then he ends up just exploding in the second half.
Yeah.
Great video. If you check out our YouTube channel, there's a great video of an awesome little touchdown screen that he took on kind of a pitch and catch deal. He runs down the sideline, jukes. I don't know, have we, at 4A, without a Rochester uniform, have we seen a better 4A player?
Probably not.
Wow, is he amazing. And Braunmeyer, the quarterback, is very good. They have a very big line that pushes people around, and they're going to be a real problem. They've got a game against Lutheran South this week, which, let's be...
They might win.
And then they wrap it up, and I thought it was interesting how both Mr. Jasper and Mr. Napo Vanis were like, yeah, we go to Waterloo that last week, but...
They play us tough.
They play us tough, and they have, to their credit. But I don't see a whole lot stopping Mater Dei from being 8-1, which would avoid, obviously, Rochester early. It will also help them avoid Columbia early. And you and I talked during the game about Columbia specifically and how much fun a Mater Dei Columbia game would be in round 2 or 3.
That's probably round 3, and yeah, that's going to be an interesting game if it happens.
My
for sure.
Goodness. It was just a lot of fun. Napo Vanis had an amazing night. The quarterback was fantastic. And was Coach Stiebel worth the price of admission?
Always is.
Wow, is he fun to watch.
Well, you and I talked about this too. Freddie Edwards was pleading his case the entire first half to get in, didn't get in, and we're watching them warm up for the second half, and we're like, yeah, he's coming in. And he comes in, and holy cow, it was very immediate that he was the best player on the field.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Winning close.
Freddie Edwards burst onto the scene as a freshman at Granite City 3 years ago. Most of the people are like, who is this kid? And he has continued to progress. He's fighting a groin injury. He's already committed to Miami of Ohio. Will sign with them in November. And this is a legitimate Division I. That is what a Division I football player
There's no
looks
question, because he had that 53 or 57-yard touchdown run, and he made one cut and was gone. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, it was just there was just something special. And if that's him at 70%, wow, I don't know if I want to see him at 100. And he had torched Mater Dei the year before.
400 yards off.
And as soon as he comes onto the field, it was really funny. This is how tuned in the Mater Dei fans are. They're like, Freddie's in. Freddie's in. Watch him. You got to watch him. And literally the second time he touches the ball, boom, he's gone. And it was fun to watch. But to Mater Dei's credit, 49-14, they get the win. You want to talk about some balance. Nolan Foppy, that's the big fullback, 14 carries, 134 yards, a 9.57 per yard carry, or yards per carry average. Zach Napo Vanis, 14 carries, 134 yards.
What are the odds?
It's crazy. 28 carries, and do the math real quick. 268?
Yes.
268 yards out of those two guys. Here's where the separation comes. Napo Vanis also had 6 receptions to lead the team with 57 yards. Got into the end zone a couple of times. This is I'll tell you where he would fit in great is Rochester. And not to take anything away, but that's the kind of players they have at Rochester. He's not an oversized kid. He's 5'11", 185. He's not going to dazzle you with great juke moves or anything like that. He's very difficult to bring down. And he always falls forward. He makes just a slight little move that makes people miss. Just super fun to watch, and what a great experience. They're going to be a fun team to see in the playoffs, and I would guess that the IHSA will set it up to where Rochester and then Columbia and Mater Dei would meet. Columbia or Mater Dei will meet in the semis, maybe the quarters. We'll kind of see how that works out. But holy cow, was that fun! And while we're there watching that game, and we did have an amazing time. Some of us better than others. Columbia was busy dispatching another opponent, which was Bree Central this time. They just took Bree Central apart. And I'm sure, and I'm not going to do my Scott Horner tonight. By the way, a lot of people like that, just so you know.
Both of them?
I've had
all
7.
2 of them.
I believe I had 7 likes on that.
Okay.
But I'm sure he sold the kids a bag of magic beans and said this is going to be a tough ball game. And at halftime, it's 28-12. By any way you measure things, that's a win for Bree Central.
Well, and outside of week 1, that's the closest anybody's been.
By far. What they didn't count on was the Horner twins absolutely rewriting the record books. Nick Horner, and we know how special this kid is. We've been watching him play for a long time. He is 11 for 12. Now, I would imagine that Dad grounded him over that one incompletion.
Probably.
Well, he should have. He was 11 for 12, 262 yards. Colin, how about 6 touchdowns?
Yeah.
School record.
Now, this is it's a school record at a football school.
Right.
It's not a school record at some school that's finally found success.
Right.
There have been some awesome quarterback combination and receiver combinations that have come out of there. Sam Horner, his brother, 5 receptions, 97 yards. He gets into the end zone, I believe, 4 times. Is that correct? For 4 touchdowns. So we're not going to give it away, but you might want to pay attention to who our player of the week is, because it may be co-players of the week.
It might be.
And I love what somebody tweeted out this weekend. They said the Columbia record book has been renamed the Horner record book. And what they've accomplished this year is crazy. And we still have 2 weeks to go.
Yeah.
And they I think we're looking at a 9-0 season for them. They go down, I think they play Redbud. Yeah, they play at Redbud on Friday. Can't imagine that's going to go anywhere other than good for Columbia. And then they wrap up at Jerseyville. Yes, Rick Johns is a great coach, but they haven't had the kind of success that we thought they would have. So Columbia is going to, obviously, they've already won the Cahokia Conference, and we would fully expect that they will go 9-0. And the only thing that's going to keep them from getting like the South 1 seed is probably Rochester, who picked up another running clock victory this weekend. I think it was 69-23 over Springfield. They have a huge game. I know it's not 618 related, but they play Chatham Glenwood. So you're going to have the number 1 team in either, I guess that's 5A, playing the number 2 team in 4A for the CS8 championship. It'll be fun to see what happens there. If you're looking at Jerseyville, you got a team that's 2-5, just really got pounded by Mascoutah this week, barely squeaked by Waterloo, got hammered by Triad, got beat by Civic Memorial. So, I would say that I think Columbia is going 9-0. In the Mississippi Valley, we were all cruising towards a Triad deal. They were going to go 9-0. It was going to be a great year for them. And Highland got in the way.
We sure did.
Tell me you saw that coming.
Well, I thought it was going to be a really good game based on the way Highlands found themselves the last 3 weeks, and they continue to keep it going.
But 21-7, and oh, by the way, that 7 was scored
Way late.
with 10 seconds to go.
Yeah.
Triad punches it in to ruin the shutout. But that game was played at Triad. It was a huge ball game. Now all of a sudden, if you look at the the Mississippi Valley Conference, Triad 6-1, they're in. Civic's 5-2, they're in. Highlands 4-3, looking at their schedule, they're in. Mascouta's 4-3. They go to Waterloo this week.
So you're going to have 4 teams in that conference with at least 6 wins, probably. It's pretty tough.
Definitely with 5, and with this strength of schedule, 5's going to get you into that conference. In that conference, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch where they all get seated. Good bounce back win for Mascouta. Devin Wills is back in the mix. He had a huge ball game, and we just missed seeing him, I guess, at his best. If we're not going to give the player of the week to the Horners, which I think we kind of have to, can I make a motion that Tyler Macon had another good game?
Unbelievable.
The East St. Louis quarterback goes 20 for 26 for 440 yards and 4 touchdowns.
How about they have 3 kids over 100 yards receiving?
And O'Fallon obviously looked at film, and Byron Geddes, I think, is going to be an outstanding coach in this area. And he says, you know what, we're stopping the running game. And they did. If you look at the running game, East St. Louis only rushed for 54 yards. Unfortunately, they threw for 440. And they absolutely take O'Fallon apart. They win that game 51-3. Any reason to think East St. Louis isn't going to go undefeated?
No.
Anybody in the Midwest that can beat them?
Doubtful.
Yeah. And I picked up an interesting nugget this week. We were questioning why they're in 5A, because really we've seen 6A football, we've seen 7A football, and there's nobody touching them in either. In 5A, their starters might play a half in the state championship game. That's how good this team is. The Southwest Conference apparently put in a rule with their member schools that you are not allowed to request to the IHSA to play up.
I don't understand that, but okay. I don't understand what it matters, but
I don't either, because basically what you did by doing that, if East St. Louis petitions up like they always have, and they play in 7A, I still don't see anybody beating this team, but the path is so much more filled with landmines than at 5A.
Sure.
And if you look at a team, we haven't seen Chatham Glenwood play, but they're apparently one of the great 5A teams in the area, or in the state. There is no way they could play with East St. Louis.
I don't think so.
And even with the penalties and some of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Not disorganization, but undisciplined play that East St. Louis sometimes has been known for, there is no chance that anybody's touching them. So East St. Louis 7-0, they're probably headed to 9-0. We actually have 3 area teams that are undefeated. We have East St. Louis, Columbia, and also let's throw in the Nashville Hornets, because in 2 or 3A, depending on where they fall, they're going to be a problem.
They definitely will be.
They're not just beating people; they are pounding.
They're
teams.
destroying people.
And I don't know how it's going to work out. I doubt that we're going to get there before the end of the year, but that may be one of our great regrets at the end of the season that we didn't put them on the schedule.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of on the fringe out there in Washington County, but hats off to Nashville on a great season. So as we look forward to next week, we've made the decision that we're going to go to Edwardsville Friday night because Colin is out of gas money.
Oh, okay.
It's very close to his place.
So he can walk.
Right.
Yeah.
And he has assured us he'll be on time.
Huh.
Right?
Maybe.
Have I assured you though?
Yeah, you really haven't. We haven't actually confirmed that yet. But we are going to go to Edwardsville. We're going to see O'Fallon. This is an O'Fallon team that's really playing for their playoff lives.
It's a must-win. There's no other way to put it. It's a must-win.
And their great running back was out this week. They would not say what the injury was, but he's out. Hopefully he'll play this week. But Edwardsville has had I would call it, I guess it would be safe to say they've had an up and down season. Early on it looked like they were going to dominate people, but they've struggled a little bit lately. If you look at their schedule, they're 5-2. They lost to CBC. There's no shame in that. They lost to East St. Louis. There's no shame in that. I think the game that they'll look back on and say, maybe as a gut check, was the 22-16 victory at Belleville East in a game that, they had to hold the line late in the game to win that one against a Belleville East team that's quite frankly struggled. So it'll be interesting to see. They've got O'Fallon, then they wrap their season up with Vianney. I'm going to call it right now. I think we're looking at a 7-2 Edwardsville team. It's going to put them in that 4-5, maybe 6 seed area. Hopefully they can avoid a long road trip early on, and a Chicago team will have to come down here. So you Edwardsville folks, we would love to see you. We're going to come out to the athletic complex, unless we hear otherwise this week that there's some pavilion somewhere we should visit. And there is a city park right down the street.
Oh, that is right. Yeah.
But we will be in the parking lot there at Edwardsville on Friday night for the tailgate, and then we'll head over to the field for the game itself. When we come back, we've got some really hot topics we'd like to talk about. You are watching the 618 High School Huddle, hosted by BigRedWorld.org. If you're selling your house, or if you're buying a house, or if you just live in your house, which is what I do, and you see water all of a sudden in your basement ruining your things, there's only one number to call, and that's 1-800-966-2379. The professionals at B-Dry Basement Waterproofing and Foundation Repair do it better than anybody else in the area. Yes, there are other companies you can call, but nobody has the ethics and the business morals that Mark Cooper and the gang over at B-Dry do in Highland, Illinois. And nobody supports prep sports at all like B-Dry does. Go to any local event. Again, the Highland Shootout, one of the great events in our area, you'll see B-Dry Solutions very present there. So it was a natural fit for B-Dry Solutions and us. BDrySolutions.com. Check them out on the web. Foundation repair, piering, anchoring, waterproofing. They'll also put in a pool. If I get enough people to like this, I might actually be able to afford one someday. Give B-Dry a call. Welcome back to the 618 High School Huddle. We appreciate you subscribing to us and listening to us. As we've gotten through this season, we've talked a lot about high school football and the playoffs, and there may be a bit of a wrench thrown into things here on Thursday.
Might be.
What are your thoughts?
Well, we have experience with this. I mean, in our high school careers, it happened, and it completely threw a monkey wrench into the whole playoff format. And we're talking about a Chicago teacher strike, which the strike date is set for Thursday the 17th. So hopefully that can be avoided. It would be a shame if kids' seasons were lost based on something like that, especially since we're almost 2 months into the school year. Yeah, that's got potential to not only affect the Chicago schools, but all up and down the state.
It really does trickle down, and we've seen it before, but this one, there's something really serious here because they agreed to go to the bargaining table. That all fell apart. It almost seems like the sides have kind of separated even more. I'm not sure what they're asking for. As somebody who's now in education, whatever it is not enough, especially in Chicago. And what this means, in case you don't understand how this works, you cannot participate in an IHSA sport if you are not in school. So let's say they go on strike Thursday, you cannot play on Friday night. And what we're hearing on social media is that a lot of the Chicago Public League teams are moving their games up to Wednesday in anticipation of a strike.
Which is smart.
To me, it's smart, but it's also scary.
Oh, sure.
Because that tells me how serious this is.
Right.
That means, rescheduling officials, it could be a real mess. And so now you remove a large chunk of 8A and 7A teams, but it also affects some smaller schools like Chicago Phillips and some of those teams. And so when you're a team like Mater Dei, who's pretty well set in 3A, you could suddenly be thrust into 4A. Now, if there's a bright side to that, you could see Rochester move up to 5A.
Possibly.
But we just have to see how it shakes out. If they would go on strike Thursday, and if that strike would only last, let's say, till Monday, and only, if you had a game on Friday night and that was lost, and you're sitting at 6-1 going into this week, you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. With one exception, and the one thing that I don't think people are considering is those 5-2 teams that think they're in right now because they're going to get enough wins.
Yeah.
A lot of the teams on their schedule are going to pick up a forfeit loss, and you're not going to get anything added to your playoff point totals. This could be a real mess, and my hope is that they can work it out. And I'm selfish, but it's for the athletes,
Right. Sure.
Again, the adults, and I'm not siding with the union, and I'm not siding with the administration here. I'm not siding with anybody other than the athletes, and they're the ones that are going to pay the price.
But this is nonsense doing this in October. I mean, if
But
you're
when does
gonna-
it have the greatest impact?
I understand, but the reality of it is, and the athletes are part of this, but it's just the kids in general that are affected, and so it's disheartening.
And there's so much more at stake here. We talk about the impact on football. You're right in the middle of cross country playoffs. You're in the middle of the finals, the final few weeks of the volleyball season.
Soccer.
The soccer season, which only has 3 classes. You remove a lot of those big 3A schools, and I just don't know how it's going to shake out. So pay attention to our social media, Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook. We're going to be on top of this, and if they do officially strike on Thursday, we will let you know. Because the fact is, down here, if you watch the local news, nobody would know that the Chicago public high schools are getting ready to strike.
Right.
There's been nothing about this in our local media. I would assume that will change a little bit on Thursday. Sticking with our theme, if there is one, about the IHSA and football, there's been a lot of talk about the proposal that was passed in late 2018 to move the IHSA football system that is currently in place to a district proposal, if you will. And that was passed.
Mm-hmm.
There was a vote sent out to the members. It was interesting, if you really look at the numbers, it was like 300 and some odd voted for, 300 and some odd under that voted against, and 65 just didn't vote.
Right.
And as soon as the IHSA announced that that was going to be the new deal, the first thing that's lost is conference affiliation. It's over. There's no more Southwest Conference, no more Mississippi Valley Conference, no more Cahokia Conference. Those fringe schools, and when I say fringe, I mean like Dupo, Granite City, Collinsville, the schools that were escaping their current affiliation to not have to play the monsters that were in their conference. If you look at Dupo, they're a 1A school basically now.
Yep.
And why should they have to play Columbia and Freeburg, Breeze Central? They shouldn't have to. So they moved to the Prairie States Conference. You've got Collinsville, who for football only leaves the Southwest Conference. Granite City completely leaves the Southwest Conference. But under the new proposal, conferences are going to be abolished. And what a district proposal means, because we've had some experience over Missouri, is that your first few games really don't matter that much. District play is all that matters, and your record in district play is all that matters. What I found this weekend is that there has been a change proposed.
Okay.
And this is a Chicago thing.
Shocker.
That instead of 256 teams, which is currently the situation where you have 32 teams in each class make it, the new proposal is to expand the field to 348 teams. And I started doing the math, and basically what this means is that you could literally go 3-6. And if you win the right 3 games,
You're in.
you're in the playoffs. 3-6.
No, thank you.
Well, it's terrible. But they've had a lot of, if you look at the articles out there, they've had a lot of push for this. There are 62 schools, I believe, that have said they will sign the petition, if you will. Supposedly, the school, it was either Waukegan or somebody out there that proposed this. They've said, we've talked to Southern Illinois, we've talked to Central Illinois, everybody's for this. But my stance is, and I think you're probably in the same boat, is they already put this to a vote.
Correct.
The district proposal kicks in 2021 and it's done for 2021 and 2022.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to change it,
It has to be after
2023
that.
is the first time you can do it.
I would agree.
And once we get to 2021, the point of no return will already be reached.
Yes.
So I don't know that this even matters at that point. And if you
Probably
think,
not.
if you think back to our show, and I talk a lot about the old days because that's all I have left. But if you think back to our show in radio, Colin, we did the show with coaches from Missouri. Chip Nicastro, who was the offensive line coach at Webster Groves, and Alvin Miller, who, if anybody was successful at Kirkwood High School, it was probably because of Alvin Miller coaching them in 7th and 8th grade. Guys like Jeremy Macklin, I mean, one of the all-time
Say no more.
St. Louis greats. They hated the district setup. They hated it because there were years when literally a team would go 2-7 and they would make the playoffs and get into the quarterfinals. They just hated it. And Misha, as an organization, was lambasted on our show. And I remember feeling kind of proud that I represented the IHSA,
Right.
who did things the right way. And then here we are 8 years later.
Dumbing it down.
We're dumbing it down. And we're also eliminating, I mean, if you follow the proposed districts as they stand right now, and there's a couple of problems I've learned about this. If you looked and you said, okay, we're going to use the IHSA district set up right now, you would have Rochester and Columbia in the same district. No offense.
Yeah, I mean,
But
right.
holy cow.
Right.
And
I don't think Columbia's happy about that.
there are some issues with that proposal that I didn't realize until I did my research this weekend, because I don't have a life. The current proposal does not include non-boundary schools.
How's that?
Don't know.
So where do they go?
Well, they're in, but there's no multiplier. So, for example, Altoff,
Right.
Mater Dei.
Yeah.
Moving up into the Chicago area, St. Rita, football absolute powerhouse, Nazareth Academy. These schools, in this current proposal as it's set right now, will not have a multiplier. And they will play based on their current enrollment only.
Right.
Well, that can't be right. Can it? But it is the way it's written. And I did my research. It's absolutely the way it's written.
I mean,
So, doesn't that leave the door open? If you're the IHSA and somebody calls and says, wait a minute, you're not going to put a multiplier on a non-boundaried school? And don't call it private, let's call it non-boundary. That's what the state does.
Right.
Who can literally recruit. There have been kids at Altoff that live in Cahokia, and they thought it was a better education for their kids, so they sent them to Altoff. I think we would not be upsetting anybody to say that state championship came with kids from around
Sure.
the area.
It did.
And it is what it is. That's the deal. And I thought it was interesting, Colin, off the air, I made the statement that the non-boundary schools can recruit.
yeah,
And your response to that was,
really. I was just surprised.
you were surprised.
Yeah.
And I think that's because your experience at Jabot, Jabot really doesn't recruit. Kids come there because they want to go there.
Yeah.
And I think that's also the case for Altoff. I think it's also the case for Mater Dei. But there is nothing to stop Mater Dei from reaching out to a kid in Highland who is the best football player in the 8th grade and saying, we'll give you free tuition, you come here.
To be honest, I think that Belleville got that rap, or Altoff rather, because they're in Belleville. Like, there's just so many kids and people in big cities around you. Versus Jabot, like, let's just, for instance,
Kind of out in the sticks.
if Jordan Goodwin came to Jabot, people might be scratching
That
their
would be
head
weird.
How did you get there? Or vice versa, went to Mater Dei.
Right.
Everyone's going to be like,
I would argue that if Jordan Goodwin went to Jabot, they'd win state. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Would you have liked to have played with him?
I would have loved to.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. It would have been nice not to have to play against him ever.
Right. And I was at the last time that Jabot played Altoff, I was at that game.
We were down like 3 at half. Or 6. It got bad like right in the last
Okay, so
second.
you're confusing halftime with first quarter.
No, because
Well, you're
we were
not
there
going to
for a
like this.
second, and then
You're
they-
not going to like this because I'm going to look it up at our next break.
You can look
And you're
it
going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe it was that bad at halftime.
Well, but
I think
also a
honestly, I
testament
think
to
you were down
how-
40 at halftime.
I doubt it was 40. The last matchup, which would have been my junior year with
Correct.
Jake, Ryan, Garrett, I don't think it was 40 at halftime.
Okay.
I'll be surprised.
All right. And if it's not 40, but it's 36, do I still win?
Yeah, it has
All
to
right.
be below
20?
Let's say 30.
Oh, wait a
25.
minute. You said 6. I said 40.
Okay, so we'll cut the difference, 25.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. All right. We'll look that up for you. The fact is that non-boundary schools, everybody's like, well, they recruit. Yes, they can if they want to. And I think in Chicago, it's a real problem. Well, I don't know about a problem, but it's part of the deal. But also the Chicago Public League.
Right.
We learned last year when we were up at state, you can come and go as you will.
Kids go to 2 and 3 high schools in their
Well,
4-year career.
Clarify that. What do you mean come and go as you will?
Just
Like-
that.
It's open.
Like, so you can just
Yeah.
enroll at a different public school?
That's
right.
correct. As long as you live in the city of Chicago. As long as you live in the city of Chicago, you can go to any school you want.
So there are kids literally going to 2 and 3 high schools in their 4-year career.
It's funny because this reminds me. I was working at something this weekend, and they had this guy that was there with. There's a petition that each county can opt into, and it was draw the line. That's the petition, and it's basically to isolate Chicago and make the rest of the state just.
Secede, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Where do I
I've
sign?
seen that.
Yeah, and so it's funny though when you think about stuff like this and you realize how, like, it is ludicrous in the one sense, but at the same time,
It's
there's
a rapper, by the way. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it
I
is.
just want to know.
I'm impressed.
Colin, I want people to know that I'm hip.
Yeah.
And he's from Atlanta.
Wow,
Just
wow,
saying.
you really dig,
Well, I kind of dig him.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. He's in one of my favorite movies of all time,
which is
Crash.
okay. I was gonna say Fast and Furious. You seem like the Fast and Furious guy.
I am, but his performance in Crash was pretty stunning.
Right, but some
And it
people
won the
put-
Academy Award for Best Picture. No big deal, but that's okay.
Fair
Sorry.
enough, touche. Anyway, getting back to the school point,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at how big, because I'm sure it's probably hard to police that to a certain extent because you're getting down to like, all right, you live on this street, you go to this school, and you go one street over to a different school. Here, it's you live in this town, you go to this school, you live in this town, you go to that school.
So you just raised a key point. It's hard to police, and so they just throw their hands up. Well, we don't want to police it because it's hard. So we're just going to let this free-for-all take place. And that's what happens.
Well, it's hard, and it's also financially probably crippling on the IHSA. I mean, how many people can you have out there policing this? I mean,
It's a weird environment. It's a weird culture because you could have kids that fancy themselves kind of celebrities and being like, you know,
Yeah.
what high school wants me this year? Free agency. Let's see who, you know. And I doubt it's really like that. But you.
oh, you're
really?
wrong.
It's that bad.
Yeah, and I would invite you to go with us to the state tournament
All right.
this year, 3A and 4A,
Okay.
and talk to some of the media members. Because for them to keep their books up
Yeah.
with where kids are now and where they're rumored to be going, and then in the summer they all announce, you know what, I'm done with Westinghouse. I'm going to Simeon.
Yeah.
I'm done with Simeon. I'm going to St. Rita. I'm done with St. Rita. I'm going to Westchester St. Joe. I'm done with Westchester St. Joe. What's the 2A school that's won the last 3 state titles? Again, you have to put the SpongeBob thing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Hill
Or
Francisco.
Chicago
Yeah.
War. Chicago War's won 3 straight state titles. Again, another documentary that you should see
Yeah.
is called A Shot in the Dark.
Okay.
And it started out actually as an article or a series of articles by Rick Tellender, who's a fantastic writer up in Chicago. And he basically followed this team for an entire year. And the amount of players that they lost to murder in literally like a little 6 or 7 block area, or family members, it was really hard to read. They turned it into a documentary, became a really big deal. But they've won 3 straight state titles, and Lou Adams, who's their head coach, who I've spoken to up at state, is a very engaging guy. Nice guy, seems like he's in it for the right reasons. Made the statement that After they won their third state title this year, we're done in 2A. We're going up to 3A because we're not getting challenged. And they ran through Nashville like they weren't there.
Yeah.
And Nashville we thought was as good as we had seen.
Yeah, down here, yeah, for sure.
And so he says, we're going to 3A. Well, then the classifications come out and they're in 2A again. He didn't petition. Why? Well, his great point guard has left and has gone to another high school for his senior year. And
So they get together in the summertime when they're playing and say, hey, where do you want to play together? And that's how this all, and you know, the bigger issue is that the state is allowing a separate set of rules for Chicago than everyone else. That's ridiculous.
And when this really came to light for us was at the Super Sectional this year. You know, my heart and soul is obviously in the 618, but I have a special connection with Bolingbrook.
Yeah.
Bolingbrook's head coach Rob Brost and I have become very good friends. We know about each other's families and things like that. And Rob and I go up to a Bolingbrook game pretty much every year. Rob and I were talking before they played Belleville West on their way to their second state title. And he said, I said, tell me about this open border thing in Chicago. And he said, well, it goes beyond that because his best player and best couple of players get approached every year in the summer by a public league school,
Really?
saying, hey, come with us. We got your back. So Corcoran, who's going to Drake and I think he's one of the best players I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, was constantly being barraged by Chicago Public League schools.
Sure.
And he grew up in Bolingbrook. This is not a kid that moved into the area. And Bolingbrook is a very nice suburb of Chicago. It's a beautiful suburb, gorgeous school. They do everything right there. And yet Rob has to fight against this. And I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't either.
And part of it is probably that everyone lives closer together. So if
No
a
doubt.
family moves, it's harder to be like,
Millions of people.
right. And versus if you move to Waterloo, from Waterloo to Columbia or Millstone.
Well, nobody does that, so no big deal. 28 years I've been involved in amateur baseball. At the Legion level, the youth level from 9U all the way up through 15, 16U. I've never met anybody quite like Mark Clark. Mark Clark with 21 baseball, former professional baseball player, started getting scouted when he was in 7th grade. You think he hasn't seen a few things, know a few stories? One of the things that Mark's learned over a long career is that you don't have to pay $5,000 to get great baseball instruction. The professionals at 21 baseball do it like nobody else. They're not going to tell you that little Johnny is fantastic if little Johnny's not fantastic. If you're looking for honest, hard-working, good professional help with your baseball swing or with pitching, give Mark Clark a call and he'll set you up with a lesson. He'll do a free evaluation, and if he thinks you're a good fit, he'll put you in. Call Mark Clark at 314-583-3302. 21 baseball. Nobody does it better. Welcome back to the 618 High School Huddle. We appreciate all the likes and retweets and everything that we're getting. Our last segment tonight involves something I've thought about a lot over the last few years, and that is video replay. If you watch an NFL game, have you ever seen a video replay?
Once or twice,
College?
a few times.
Colin sent us a video from Georgia where a young man extended out, ball inside the pylon. I mean, clearly
Clear
inside.
touchdown.
It wasn't even close. And there's a couple of issues here. Number one, the video quality, which I'm guessing, who knows what it came from.
It's excellent.
Yeah, but even if it's a
It could have been an iPhone.
right, but even if it's a camera like this, you can review it immediately.
Right.
How many times we were at Cahokia
Civic Memorial.
Civic Memorial, and there was the play where I showed you guys exactly what
That's
happened.
right. Yeah.
We also saw it live at Muscuda
Yep.
when Scott Battis, I mean, they had totally blown. The chains moved. We told that story on the podcast. It was absolute garbage. And Scott Battis has it on the video, and he's like, I want to show this to the officials. And the official's like, I got nothing.
And we'll give you a flag.
Right.
So I think, Colin, your question to us is, are we going to get to a point where video replay becomes a thing in high school?
To a certain level, it just seems like common sense.
Right, and I agree with you, it's common sense, which is exactly why we will not see it in high school anytime soon.
Right.
there's a couple of problems. One, there's not going to be a reviewing body.
No.
Unless you go down to the tavern and get Jimmy and Joe, you're not going to get a reviewing body to look at. And I thought about this. There's about 400 high schools that play football in the state of Illinois, something like that, 450, 500, whatever it is.
Right.
You're going to have the same angles at every school.
Right, where
same
you
quality.
getting the cameras, where you getting all that stuff.
Who's running the camera? All of a sudden, oh wait, they've got the ball. They're our opponents. Oh, I'll just shoot over here for. Oh,
Right.
sorry, I missed that
Right,
one.
yeah, we'll shoot the crowd for a while.
That's not happening. The cost, astronomical, to have some sort of video replay system that the referees can access on the field in a timely manner.
See,
They can't do it on a timely manner in the NFL.
Wow. And the bigger problem here is some of the guys that we come across this year for even games that I've been at that were officiating and then imagining putting instant replay in their hands.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You can't put live
Maybe like
football
5
in their
hours.
hands.
No.
It would have been like 5 hours.
Right.
But I think at the same time, there are too many people that go to these games like myself, where I have a camera and I'm looking to capture as many of these plays as possible. So they're not going to turn their camera away. And this was, and I understand that I'm bringing up a point that doesn't really exist because this just won't happen.
Might disagree with that. I think at some point we will see it,
And we might.
but it's going to be a long time.
Point one was that Muscuda had instant replay televisions in their tents. And I know that Scott Battis, as you guys have talked about, does things a little bit differently than most ADs in the area.
Yeah, the right way. Go ahead.
But I don't think it should be that hard for every school to be able to have one camera that is standard approved for everyone. You have schools across the board have the same camera at the same certain angle, and then you go back and look at it. There will be some plays that you simply can't overturn. That play that I sent you guys on Facebook or on Twitter, you probably can't overturn that.
Why?
Certain
Yeah,
angle.
you
Depending
could've.
on the angle you have, maybe not. Because my point is to capture everything. You can't have a close-up camera on the field that someone is controlling the entire time. So it's going to have to be some kind of long-range shot where you can watch the game from as much of a bird's
It's
eye view.
stationary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and kind of pick up something. So at the end of the day, something like that where it's that tight.
Mm-hmm.
You get some guy that can't really see or forgot to bring his glasses
Yeah.
when he came to the game. It's over. They're not going to get it. So it's tough, but I feel like there's so many times where we've seen it just this year.
Mm-hmm.
Videos available, and I get that it's coming from a variety of different sources and a variety of different definitions of quality, but time and again we've seen them prove a call should have been overturned.
I agree, but I'm with Jim. I just don't see it happening anytime soon for the reasons that he said. That's just my opinion.
Here's where you might see it, is at the state championship level.
Right.
And I would love to see it start there.
Because you're going to be on college campuses,
And it's
and they're
all
going to
it's
have a lot of the,
broadcast.
and they're going to have a lot of the equipment.
I mean,
anyway.
we've watched replays
yeah,
at state
Right.
on the big screen, and we're like, wow, how'd they miss that?
you know, right. Football. I mean, you'd be able to do
Basketball,
it,
I think the same way. And I'm going to bring up an instance that I think supports your argument. There was an amazing play last year at the Highland Shootout that actually made national news.
Yeah.
E.J. Liddell got locked up about 24 feet from the basket, 23 feet from the basket. He had no options.
Yeah.
He threw the ball off the backboard, went in and dunked it, and literally exploded Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that most people said is he walked. It was traveling. Now, I've watched the video, I bet 100 times. Man, it's a tough call. I think within the framework of basketball, he might have. It might have been a traveling violation. It looked to me like he might have picked up his pivot foot. I don't know. But the point being, that's a great example of where video replay might have been important. Nobody's ever seen a guy do that before.
Yeah.
A guy get locked up by a
The guy in
defense
high school.
in high school
Yeah.
who looks at the backboard and is like, okay, that's open, I'll throw it off there. We just haven't seen that. So it would have been great if we could have rewound that right on the spot. And as somebody who's involved in the Highland Shootout, I would have loved to seeing it again instead of waiting until I got home that night. But we're very far away from that. The Chicago teachers are getting ready to go on strike Thursday. And here we are talking about video.
Yeah.
I can't get schools to call in the scores. Tell me, Colin, let me ask you a question.
Yep.
I'm just going to look here.
Okay.
Hey, who won the Alton Marquette Dupo game last night?
I couldn't tell you.
No, you can tell me. We're friends.
I don't know.
You're right. No one knows.
Why don't you? Oh, because the score hasn't been called in? Oh, I see. And yet we want video?
Right.
I don't even know if did that game take place?
Maybe not.
Can you prove it?
No.
But there's something important though that you're getting at that I think is actually bigger than sports, and it gets into having these schools have a dedicated communications director where they're pushing out the information about the school to the pertinent sources.
Or an AV department.
Right.
Right.
So that, how many times did I watch Coach Scare on the way home from baseball games literally sit there and call in the scores? But some coaches are doing more than he had to do to get us ready to win games, this and that. And over different sports, some coaches have, if you're talking about a football coach, they got probably 2 busfuls of kids that they got to get to and from a game. There's a lot going on, and calling in those scores, not really important. If you have a communications director.
Well, you bring up, that's a great point, but again, where's the money coming from?
It just depends on what school you're talking about.
Well, how about Columbia?
It would have to come statewide.
But I'm saying Columbia has a guy. We were on our way home from Mater Dei. We knew the Columbia score because it had been tweeted out.
Yeah.
But we wanted to see, the first thing we thought when we saw the score is what kind of night did Nick and Sam Horner have? And I said to you, don't worry, we'll know in about 30 minutes because Howie will call it in.
Howie's up to date.
Right? So Howie is their stats guy.
Yeah.
I can pretty much guarantee you, and you can correct me, folks, if I'm wrong, but I doubt that Howie gets paid. I think he does it because he loves it.
I agree.
Sure.
And every school needs a guy like that, but the fact is
Most
we don't all have
them,
it.
yeah.
And I have, it starts with the athletic directors, right? The ADs need to find that parent or that kid that's really excited. When Altoff was making their great runs in basketball, they actually had a student-run channel that was broadcasting every game, and we would follow them, and they were amazing. Some of the lingo got a little goofy, but they're kids, and that should be encouraged. And I would say to every school, whether you're a 1A school or an 8A school, you have the technology.
Yeah.
It is in every kid's hand at the game.
Yeah.
Find a few kids and make it a little more professional. I'm not saying you have to produce professional videos. We can't all have Colin Kessler, and we're not letting him go, not with the salary we're paying him.
That's heartwarming.
But the fact is that I hope we get to a point in our lifetimes where we see replay at one of two things. Let me check that. I either want to see replay become a deal or better officiating. Which one comes first?
This is the one
Replay.
thing.
Thank you.
The officiating is more of a matter of opinion. But the thing that I was getting at, and I can't focus now, was when you brought up the shootout, the Highland shootout with EJ Liddell in that play. The thing that is going to keep replay out of the game entirely and out of high school athletics entirely is exactly what you pointed out. Well, I've watched it 100 times and I could see it this way, but I can also see it this way. When you talk about bad officiating, first and foremost, if you have a bad official that has no clue what the rule book is, has no clue what they're talking about, do you want him looking at a screen for another?
No.
Exactly. And then what you get into, does the IHSA want to deal with their referees now having another reason to be hassled because there's a parent or someone up in the stands and they're saying, well, you have to overturn this, you have to overturn that. The call on the floor or the call on the field was wrong. I have to have enough evidence to overturn it. And if I can look at a video 100 times and 50 times say it's this, 50 times say it's that.
It's not happening.
Exactly. There's too many nuances to it.
The biggest issue you mentioned there was parents, right? In pro football, and yeah, in college football, I understand there's parents, but there's also alumni and a lot of other things. I watched a fantastic football game last night it's one of the first football games I watched from start to finish, between LSU and Florida. Amazing football game. There were a couple of calls that were reviewed, and I was kind of like, whoa, hold on here. But I didn't have a vested interest. I don't care about either school, to be honest with you. I just want to see good football. But in high school, excuse me, I can assure you that if my daughter hits a ball and it's on the line in volleyball and there's somebody that has video replay, I'm going to have a much different opinion. Yeah. And I'm going to scream. Well, probably not, because I don't get like that. I'm not that dad. But some dads would scream, oh, that's in, or that's out, and that's out. And we're never going to get to a consensus. So the fact is that in our lifetime, probably not happening until every game is broadcast. And when I say broadcast, whether it's on the internet or whatever, and everything is static from the same angles, it's not happening.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
Yeah, I agree.
We hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. It's Sunday nights are going to continue to be our thing, but we may have a special Wednesday night show coming up in about 2 weeks from the beautiful Hopskeller Brewery in Waterloo. That is where we're kind of looking at maybe being our playoff preview on a Wednesday night. October the 30th will be the day. We'll give you more information as it comes a little bit closer. I'm kind of excited about it because they have pizza. And even though I'm very skinny and in great shape and all, I still like to eat pizza. And we'll have a good time. And they have another thing that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week. We appreciate you watching and listening to the 618 High School Huddle, hosted by BigRedWorld.com. Got an interesting question at Mater Dei. One of the moms said, hey, how can we see this? How can we hear this? It's very, very simple. Wherever you download podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or if you want to go straight to our platform, Spreaker.com, just look up 618 High School Huddle. Give us a follow, give us a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. That way, every time we drop a new episode or we do something new, you'll get a notification if you choose to turn them on. Also, Twitter. We're pretty big on Twitter. That's for Scott and I. That's our big thing. It is at HS Huddle 618. At HS Huddle 618. Instagram, same thing. HS Huddle 618. And also, you can like us and follow us on Facebook. You'll get all the new notifications and all the same stuff. Follow us on social media. Help a couple of 53-year-olds figure this thing out. We want likes, we need followers, and we need retweets. Thank you very much.